Bad weather may make for some really interesting photographs, but rain and snow may not be good for your cameras and lenses. So keep watching for some tips on inclement weather photography. Hi, and welcome to Jules Voto's Photo Focus. In this video, I'm going to give you some tips on how to deal with bad weather, both rain and snow and even wind. Now, most modern cameras are weather sealed to some extent. The higher end ones are weather sealed better than the less expensive ones, but most cameras today have some type of weather sealing. And even lenses. Lenses, for a while actually, a lot of them have had a rubber gasket at the back of the mount, and that would seal the lens to the camera, okay, make a watertight seal. And also the lenses themselves. Today's lenses are weather sealed. Openings, switches on the lens are sealed internally with some type of a gasket. And again, cameras the same. The switches, the buttons on the camera, any openings are sealed. So you're pretty confident, you can be pretty confident in going out with your mirrorless camera or modern DSLR that weather won't be much of a factor. You still should use a filter on the lens and also a lens shade to help keep water droplets, snow from accumulating on the front element. Now, I still recommend that you would take with you a microfiber cloth, because if anything gets on the front element, and again, or the filter, actually you should have that filter on there, you could easily wipe it off with your microfiber cloth and keep that in your pocket to stay warm. Now, modern cameras, of course, are completely battery dependent, and in the cold, batteries don't perform as well. So I suggest that you keep a spare battery in an inside pocket, your pants pocket, your inside coat pocket. That will keep it warm, so you could swap out the battery. Now, when you do that, if you're going to change batteries, I would make sure you're under cover somewhere, keeping rain and snow out of that battery compartment. Okay, because the battery door itself may be sealed, but internally it probably isn't. So you don't want any moisture to get into that battery compartment. Same thing if you change lenses. You could have a completely weather-sealed camera and lens. Now it's time to change lenses, and you don't want to do that in the rain or in the snow. Even the wind, if it's a windy day, you don't want to really change lenses because some dirt, dust, whatever could blow into your camera, especially if it's a mirrorless digital camera. The sensor is exposed when you remove the lens. So I would suggest getting into your car to make that lens change, stepping into a building, or at a very minimum under some type of cover. Okay? Now, I recently did a video where it was a snowy day. Actually, the snow had stopped when I went out. But I went out with my Z7 and an old Canon 55mm 1.2. Okay, it's not weather sealed. It's a lens that dates from the mid-60s. And of course, I made sure to have a filter on it and a lens shade. And what I did, again, the camera is weather sealed, but I wanted to protect that lens. I just took some electrical tape, taped a piece of plastic to the shade, okay, left enough room for my hand to get to the camera controls, and extended that piece of plastic more to the right side, because that's how when I turn the camera to do a vertical, I turn it to the right. I also put a little piece of tape holding the plastic to the eyepiece of the camera. Okay, and that seemed to work fairly well. I was being overprotective because by the time I went out, the snow had stopped, but I wasn't sure if it would pick up again, and I wanted to be prepared. Now, another thing I did, okay, I'm going to take this piece of plastic off right now. Okay, another thing I did is, of course, this lens does not have a gasket, and neither does the adapter. The adapter which attaches to the Z7, and at the other end the lens goes. The mount on the camera extends a little bit, so I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. All right, so what I did, I just took some of this tape and I just put it onto the part of the mount of the camera that extends a little bit, and then taped it down onto the adapter. I did the same thing between the lens and the adapter. Okay, now these old Canon lenses are good because the aperture ring is at the front. On the Nikkor lenses and most other lenses, the aperture ring is at the back, so you really can't tape the aperture ring to the adapter, because then you won't be able to adjust the aperture, unless it's one of these lenses that needs to be stopped down with CPU lenses that need to be stopped down to the minimum aperture. Then of course you could tape it because you're adjusting the aperture on the camera. Okay, so that worked pretty well. Again, it really wasn't snowing when I went out, but I was prepared in case it did. So that's one way to protect a manual focus mechanical lens that has no weather sealing, or even an autofocus lens that has no weather sealing. Just use some plastic. Okay? All right, so what do you do if you have a manual camera, an old mechanical camera like this Nikon F2? Basically, I did the same thing. Put some plastic on it, tape the plastic to the lens hood, and tape back at the eyepiece. It's not perfect, but it does allow me to get my hand to the shutter release, to focus easily, to advance the film. One more thing on the electrical tape. Works fine. It will protect. It's because it's plastic, and it will keep moisture out of those areas that you place it on. However, don't leave it on for an extended period of time. In other words, when you come back in, if you're not going to go back out and shoot anymore in that rain or snow, remove it. Because if it stays on for any length of time, especially in warm conditions, hot conditions, the adhesive is going to adhere to the camera, it's going to run, it's going to gum up the works. So make sure you do remove it when you are done shooting. Okay, again, before removing it, make sure you dry the tape well, the surface of the tape, so that none of that moisture gets into the camera. Okay, another thing, I mentioned lens hoods. A wide-angle lens, of course, is going to have a more shallow lens hood than a telephoto lens. This is a lens hood for a 25mm Zeiss lens. You can see it's, I don't know, it's maybe 3/4 of an inch deep. And here is one for a 105mm Nikkor lens. It's probably a good 2 inches deep. So this is going to be more protective of that front element, that filter, than a shorter shade. So again, keep your microfiber cloth handy, and you're going to get raindrops, you're going to get snowflakes falling on your lens, and just frequently clean it off to remove them. There are some manufacturers that make protective coats, rain shields, raincoats for your camera. You could just look those up online. I've tried a few of them, and I don't know that they're worth the money. I think the homemade plastic works well. If you're using a non-weather sealed camera and you go the route of taping some plastic to the hood and to the area near the eyepiece, inevitably the camera's going to get wet a little bit. So again, just keep that microfiber cloth handy, dry it off as often as you can. When you go back indoors, make sure you dry it well, especially before changing lenses, okay? And that even goes for the weather-sealed cameras. If you do go indoors or into your car to change lenses, make sure you dry that area off completely, because when you go to change that lens, some moisture could get into the camera, and you don't want that to happen. And then when you finally go in, when you're done shooting, dry that camera really well. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope these tips have helped. You know, remember, bad weather can make for some great photographs. Things look different in bad weather, rain or snow or fog, in the wind, trees blowing. So don't stay in. Get out there and try to get some great pictures. Just protect your cameras and lenses and have a great time. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I usually come out with a new video every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you.